Yeah? Cool. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. It's great to have such a good turnout on a nice sunny night like tonight. We're going to start out with Bob Weiss, and he's going to be talking about WordPress security.
Hey, everybody. Nice turnout. I almost stayed home. No, I didn't come. A little bit about my background. I collect alphabetical letters, and I'm trying to get Q and Z, so if anybody's got like a spare one they're not using. It's really hard in my line of work. Everything seems to have a C in it. It's very weird. But I'm the Senior Cybersecurity Engineer at Computer Integration Technologies, and I've got a couple of security certifications, big wow. And I also write a blog at wiseguyscybersecurity.com. I publish 3 articles a week, and I just recently crossed the 1,000 article threshold, which means I talk too much. But I write my articles for sort of like average computer users who just want to stay out of trouble. I try and find stuff that's current, something new that's happening, and give you like tips on how to figure out if it's happening to you and what to do if it's happened to you already. And a little bit of that is going to go on tonight here. So, additionally, I'm on the board of ISC Squared, and I'm their webmaster. I do design in WordPress. My blog's in WordPress, and I'm on the Upper Midwest Security Association as a board member. And these are other security groups I hang out in from time to time if the topic's interesting. My Twitter handle is @WiseGuys, W-Y-Z. And you can find me on LinkedIn too. Actually, you can find me on LinkedIn and a fictitious personal evil twin that I created for a phishing exercise that I put people through who have been bad. If you've been naughty and clicking on stuff, you get to take my test and see if you... So anyway, how this presentation happened. I started my blog back in October 26, 2006 on Blogger and moved to WordPress in 2013. And I was actually, I think, at WordCamp a few years back, and somebody did a presentation on WordPress security. And as a security professional who had a security blog, I thought, hey, this is pretty cool. I should put some security on my website. And when I installed WordFence and started getting the automatic alerts of people that were trying to brute force log into my website, I was astounded, because it was dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of attempts a day coming from many locations. And it was quite obvious from the way the patterns were that they were using admin and just going down a password list and trying different passwords. And eventually, given enough time, one of these guys would have succeeded. So I got kind of actually really excited about WordPress security, and since I'm in the security business, I developed this presentation and some other little expertise in this. So this is what a WordFence alert would look like. It tells you the IP address of, whoops, trip over your own cords. Hang on, I've got technology for this. The IP address, which will give you the ability to find out the location in the world where this traffic is coming from. Unfortunately, because of things like Tor, anonymizing systems like Tor, where they bounce traffic off a bunch of proxies before they get to you, this doesn't really help much, but it's interesting nonetheless that somebody from White House, the White House? I don't know. So why would somebody hijack my website? That's a fair question, right? Well, Brian Krebs, who writes a blog called Krebs on Security and has thousands more followers than my little blog does, working on that. But he suffered from a distributed denial of service attack that took his blog offline for several days. Why would they do that? Well, Brian picks on the bad guys, and he names names, and there are people who have actually been arrested because of research and articles that he's written. And so he's got, I guess, several sort of anti-fans who are after him. Anybody here ever had a problem with their, just curious? Anyone? There's a few. Anybody feel like sharing? Pardon? Yeah, it looks like there's a bunch. Hmm. Yeah.
That was at the time when they were not changing. There's the first admin is created is
Yeah.
role 1,
Yep.
and you can actually go in and change that. And
Yep.
that's one of the things you should be doing.
Yep.
And we never knew about that. And it was one of those things that's like all of a sudden, it's like scaring me. I'm in Chicago and phone calls, three of our customers have their websites and they were on.
Yep.
We were lucky that we had backups
Yep.
that we were able to restore from rather quickly. But it was like, oh, we need to take a better look at
Yeah.
security.
Yeah. Anyone else want to share? Okay. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't use that. I hate that. I prefer to use CDNs or web proxies or something that's
Right.
more forward facing, not just something that's, trying to speed things up on a local server. And what's interesting is that somebody will remove their file, even if they delete file. So there was abandoned in directories. I didn't know about that. I didn't even know it was an area. And that was a known risk.
Yeah. 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 Perfect. So these two gentlemen have done a marvelous job, and we're done. I mean, no, seriously. But they covered a lot of things that we're going to talk about a little bit here. There's two kinds of attacks. There's non-targeted attacks. This is where somebody is just doing sort of like a sweep of the internet, and they're looking for, if they're hunting WordPress sites, they're looking for WordPress sites that are older versions, that haven't been updated, that are unsecured, that are unpatched, that have old plugins or old widgets installed that can be exploited. And there are automated software-driven scanning tools that will identify those kinds of things. The goal is to compromise as many sites as possible. They'll steal information out of the database, and if it's personal information of your clients, they'll sell it to identity theft rings or other types of groups that pay for whatever that information is. All information has value, and there are active markets on the dark web that's just trading information. Website content or information can be held for ransom, and in some cases, they will extract your database and then offer to return it for a fee. Access to web server may be rented to other cyber criminals, and I do another presentation on phishing exploits, the type with the email, and basically hijacked WordPress websites are used to host landing pages for these phishing exploits. So you get an email with a link, it goes to a web page, and it can be the web page of a perfectly legitimate company who doesn't know that they're hosting landing pages for financial exploits like that. Yep. Yeah, you won't see it in the navigation. It's just there, like a landing page you might create for a campaign, an advertising campaign. You can only get there from the link, right? It's a landing page. Well, this is what they're doing. Or it may be a targeted attack. They may have decided to attack you for some reason. It may be that you're big, or that there's information that's particularly valuable to them, or that they think that you can afford the ransom to get your stuff back. Who knows? So, taking possession. One way to get in is to get your username and password, of course. And if you have installed WordPress in the default and are using admin as the username, you've given them half of the information they need to get in just by simply not changing that. If you're using admin as a user, you want to go home and change that. You may get a phishing email. You might get somebody who just brazenly calls and asks for it. There are a lot of people who are very skillful at creating a really believable yarn and proof, and you're all of a sudden telling them things you shouldn't be telling them. You may have had your computer infected with a type of malware called a keylogger. A keylogger keeps track of everything you type and sends an email report to the bad guys once a day, simply using automated tools again to scan for user ID and password combinations and other types of useful information like credit card information and what have you. This information will be parsed out, collected and sold, or it may be used by the original crew who gathered the information. Password guessing. This is what brute force password attacks are all about. I start with an obvious username like admin, and then maybe I switch the username to something like Bob if I'm going after Bob's Wise Guy cybersecurity account. Bob was very popular, Bob Weiss, Wise Guy, all kinds of permutations of my online identity that were easily found on LinkedIn and God knows where, were being used as the user identity part of it, and then they were throwing either a word list at it or just randomly changing the password and trying all possibilities. And that's the automated brute force password cracking. Or you can go online on the dark web, on the online marketplaces there, and buy lists of compromised WordPress websites, user IDs and passwords and URLs you need to log in. So your stuff may be for sale on the internet and you may not know it. Bad news, sorry. Everybody gets depressed right about here. It's really sad because it's like, we're happy, we're together. It's like, oh, Bob's counter. Sorry about that. We are going to give you some solutions in a minute, and I try to keep the patter, loose and funny. Anyway, so when I added WordFence Security, I was able to see the volume of brute force attacks against my little blog, and I have no delusions about who I am. I'm a reasonably semi-talented cybersecurity guy in the middle of the freaking Midwest, and I should not be a target, but I am. And the sad fact of the matter is that everybody in the room is a target. You just don't know it yet. And why? It may not be anything you did or didn't do. It's just because those websites have value. I can sell them to a phishing crew to use for landing pages. And in fact, I can rent that same website over and over again to multiple cybercrime groups, because hey, how are they going to know? So one of the things that I did to harden my security is I added two-factor authentication, and I used Mini Orange for two-factor authentication. When I added two-factor authentication, I stopped getting the brute force attack alerts. Once they realized that even if they guessed my password, they were still going to need a 6-digit one-time passcode that you can only get off of this crappy microphone, no, off of this cell phone. They stopped. They moved on. Too hard. And there's too many unprotected websites out there, easier pickings. So if you go away from here and you don't do anything else, add some type of security plugin and some type of two-factor authentication and get rid of that admin password or that admin user account. So let's talk about some solutions, all right? Protecting your website. The first thing you need to do is make sure that the computer that you use to access your website is clean. If you have malware on that computer, somebody is probably riding on your shoulder, watching what you do. They've got a keylogger installed and they're getting all the information they need to take your website over without having to do anything difficult, okay? So install a good anti-malware product on Windows PCs, Macs. I'm sorry, Apple users, the myth of invulnerability is a lie. It's a lie. For decades, when Apple was 3% of the computer marketplace, you were ignored. That's not the case anymore. You're not ignored. Why? Because Apple is more like 10%, and the demographic of Apple users is that they have more money and they're willing to spend it to get something, to get a premium product. Makes them much more valuable when it comes time to extort something. Okay, so sorry. Sophos, I'll find a security company out of the UK, makes a free anti-malware for the Mac. SOPHOS. The second thing you want to do is kind of learn to use the internet in a secure manner. Most breaches, over 90% of computer attacks start as an email. It's a phishing email. These emails are cleverly created to look like the real thing. They're doing individual research. I got a phishing email from my own hosting company that was very realistic and had a wonderful landing page. Had a beautiful landing page. It was identical to the landing page of the hosting company, and could have very easily just entered my user ID and password and boom, and shipped them off to the bad guy. You know, we don't have any examples in this, but you can find me. I'm around. If you want to learn about phishing, take a business card. I'll tell you the next time I'm doing it publicly. Avoid clicking on links and opening attachments in any email unless you're absolutely sure that it's authentic, okay? I mean, when I get an email from my bank and it's got a little link to click it, I don't use that. I go up and open my web browser and I click on the shortcut that I have for my bank that nobody has modified or altered and is valid, or I'll type, you know, I'll actually type it in longhand. Oh my God. Took me 30 whole seconds to do that, as opposed to like spending 2 weeks trying to straighten your life out after, you know, getting involved with a phishing crew. Keep your web browser version up to date, which means if you're using Chrome or Firefox or Safari or God help you, Internet Explorer or Edge, and yeah, but you know, get them up versioned. I know Chrome automatically updates if you set it up in settings. I think Firefox will too. Yeah, I mean, clone or malicious websites. They'll look right, but if you look up in the address bar, the web address is going to be totally wrong. My US bank email that I got a couple weeks, couple of weeks before Christmas, landed me on a very realistic US bank landing page. The email or the web address in the browser was for a company called fatcatscones.com. They're a bakery. They're a bakery with a hacked website. Yep. Sometimes they'll go out and register domain names that are close. I've got one that I use for this phishing simulation thing I told you about that I registered FICE356.com. Put a subdomain of OF in front of that, and it's Office 356, close enough to Office 365 to be realistic. Plus, I can create email addresses that look very realistic. That's where my friend Jeff Lamino works. You can look him up on LinkedIn. It's my evil twin. When starting a new site, okay? If you happen to be starting a WordPress site from scratch, you can do some things right off the bat that'll make it more secure. Choose a good host, rename the administrator account, and don't use your name. Your name is all over WordPress. If you're blogging, you probably are using your name. Your name is no good as a password or as a username either. Change the default table prefix from WP underscore to something else. Although I did just read an article a couple months ago that suggests that that's not that big of a deal. But if your table structure in the database is the default one, the WP underscore, that's a known thing. The hackers all know about WordPress. They know how it's built. They may know more about it, how it's built than the people in the room know how about what it's built like. Delete the sample page and the sample post, because WordPress creates these by default. People usually, many times people will leave them there, but not include them in the navigation, but this just gives them some place to hunt. Secure the administrator account. Don't use admin or your name. Too late. Create a new administrator account and delete or disable the old one. You can create user accounts, as many as you need, and just, create a new one. Much better if you use an editor level account or lower for the creative work rather than actually adding content under the administrator account. More secure. And if you have a multi-user blog or you have a website where there are many people contributing, make sure to give them the permissions they need, and then it's not going to include full administrative permissions. Try to enforce some sort of password length and complexity requirements, but understand that, your new intern is going to use their favorite password, which is the name of their cat Fluffy, That is not a password, that's just an open invitation to guessing. Always use strong passwords. What's a strong password? Well, in the era of brute force password cracking, complexity, which is upper and lower case numbers and symbols, jumble up the letters, do some of that. None of that matters to brute force password cracking. The only thing that matters is length, and the longer you go, the more time it will take for them to try everything. For instance, 8-character passwords, all the possible combinations of 8 or characters or less passwords is like, I believe, 45 trillion. Don't quote me on the numbers escaping me, but it's in the trillions. And nevertheless, using brute force password cracking, I can guess all those 45 trillion combinations in 2 days. So if you have an 8-character password, I can break it in 2 days. I don't care what it is. I don't care how complex it is. Okay, I've got software. Yes, so we're coming to that. Very good. He says, well, can't we do some rate limiting? Like so many bad logins and then you get locked out? Yes, that is something you can do. WordPress can calculate password strength for you. I think that actually happens after you install the security plugin, but it may be in the new. And, yeah, okay. And one thing that I've been using myself and recommending is using a password manager program, Pass, to keep track of all these big, long, beefy passwords you're going to be creating for security's sake.
WordPress also has part of
Yep. Yep. Use two-factor authentication. I set up my website with Mini Orange, but actually WordFence Premium, WordFence Security and Premium offers two-factor natively in the Premier Edition. Okay. Yeah. Well, and the question is, okay, should I put my two-factor authentication in with WordFence? And I actually like a little diversity in my security. So I'm going to leave Mini Orange in place. Now I've got another website where I've got WordFence going. I'm going to upgrade to Premium. And it's not my favorite website, obviously. Otherwise, I'd have upgraded to Premium already. I'll run the two-factor there, and I'll see how they, go fare. Or you can use a CAPTCHA plugin. That'll make it a little more exciting for the brute forcers. I would say two-factor authentication. You should just start looking for two-factor authentication for all the other bits of your life. Yes?
That I would give it a caveat. The captcha is really good for
Mm-hmm.
It's good to give them, they get a hiccup because of that.
Yep.
If you're actually being hacked by what I call thumbtack, which is actually keeping bodies in front of
Yep.
a screen, they will get past that.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I'm using two-factor and not a CAPTCHA, because CAPTCHAs can be beaten by machines too. I mean, they can.
But the thing that will give it away normally is our, that's very
So some other things that, with basic Word, I don't mean to cut you off, I just, you've got two other. Allow WordPress to update automatically. Update your plugins and themes. Only use plugins and themes from trusted sources. What's a trusted source? Well, I like, the stuff I find on WordPress.org. Delete plugins you don't use, and that includes the ones that comes with WordPress default installation. If you're not using 2014, theme, get it out of there. Delete plugins that are reported as unsafe. I subscribe to the WordFence blog, and they just released a list of like 37 plugins and that have been abandoned by their developers. They're no longer being updated, and consequently, there could be security vulnerabilities in there that nobody's paying attention to. Block or disable pingbacks and trackbacks. Backup, somebody mentioned about having a backup. And if your site develops like a problem, having a backup is a quick and easy way to get your site back up and running. You just delete the one that's in there and restore from the backup. Pretty simple. Backup WordPress, Updraft Plus, Backup Buddy I've used Backup WordPress and Updraft. Don't know about Backup Buddy, it was a recommend. I download and save copies of the backups to my own computer periodically, because in some cases, the backup program is saving it actually in the web server, and it's kind of like if your web server has a total thermonuclear meltdown, well, those backups aren't going to help you very much. Yeah, and Updraft, I just switched over, the Dropbox and OneDrive, and Updraft actually has its own. If you pay for premium, they've got their own storage too. Yep. Although if your website gets big enough, it's too big. The attachment's too big to be emailed. When you get to 1,000 articles on your blog, your website's too big to email anymore. Trust me on that one. Install a security plugin. I use WordFence pretty much for everything, but I had 3 sites. I tested the 3 most popular: WordFence, Sucuri, and Bulletproof. Liked all of them. Sucuri is probably the best one. It's certainly the most expensive. If price price is no object, I guess I'd say go with Sucuri. I get emails from Sucuri and WordFence, and they're both right on top of their game. Both of them have security research teams that are watching the web and trying to figure out what's happening in the environment. Limit logon attempts. Okay, so this is something you can set up in your security product where you decide that WordPress is going to lock them out after so many failed attempts. I've got mine set to 6. 6 might be too much, but in case I'm like seriously inebriated or recovering from a stroke or something like that, I want to give myself a fair opportunity. You can lock them out for a period of time. It can be 20 minutes, it can be an hour, it can be a day, it can be a week. I've got my lockout period set to a day. If I'm so out-wasted one way or another that I blow my 6 chances, I guess I can wait a day. You can make it longer. Pardon? Yes, you can whitelist IPs and you can attempt to blacklist IPs, but thanks to Tor, there's really no point in doing that. You can blacklist by country. You know, geo blacklisting, if you have no followers in China or India or Russia or Brazil, which are the 4 big, you know, hacker universes out there, block them. Just block the whole entire country. Scan website for malware regularly. This is an automated feature of your security plugin, so it's nothing you have to do. But if you think something goofy's happening, you can certainly go in and scan it manually. Both WordFence and Sucuri have support teams that will help you delouse your website if it's getting infected. So if you are, you know, it's technically above you, that's fine. There's help. What? Yeah, I would restore from a backup. Yeah, there's no point in trying to cure it. When I'm working on a computer that's infected, you know, sure, I can run the scanner and it finds something and removes it, but then it doesn't find something and didn't remove it, and no, it's like wipe the drive, rebuild from scratch. You know.
The reason that you would use services, if you get a client who calls you up, never had it before, and your site is getting brought in, you recover the site. That's, you know,
Yeah.
It's not an easy fix. They're really good.
Yep. Yep.
And there are very hidden backdoors that can install.
Yep. Yep.
And one thing you mentioned, getting rid of themes, plugins that you aren't actually using. And I also added that other operation testing. I've seen it in somebody else had an website or a blog that forgot about it and the site was very good stuff.
Right.
And then it doesn't be updating your file stuff. That other one is sitting.
Yeah, if it's on the same server, and it gives them a way in, and then they're in. And if they can get administrative rights to the server itself, well, it's game over. They can go anywhere. You mean from WP-login to something else? Yeah, WP admin. Yeah, you could do that. If you're doing it with a plugin or some other, I mean, that will be a known thing, and they'll be like looking for that. So I think you're a lot better off changing the administrative username to something not obvious and putting a really good password and 2-factor out there, and just let them bang on it. You know, if the door's thick enough, you can't even hear it when they're banging on it. You know? Mm-hmm. Well, so rather than attacking WordPress directly, they came in through your host, through the cPanel or Plex desktop, and you know, here again, cPanel and Plex and those types of things are known to the other side, you know, to the dark side, and you know, there are people that are working on securing those products too. You just may not be hearing about it. It really depends a little bit on your host and whether they're updating as they can or should be. Because if you're with some kind of like low rent host, yeah, or others that we can name, you know, or not name, that they're running a cPanel that's 4 versions back, well, you got problems. Because those 3 versions fixed security holes. Yeah. There aren't any I'm recommending specifically here. I mean, if you go online and, you look for best WordPress hosts, usually things like Bluehost come up and some others. But every time I talk to somebody about host recommendations, it's like you get into a debate. And you're gonna open the door, and then we're gonna have the. Yeah, yeah. And you have to kind of take a look at, what's the value of what you're doing. I mean, I'm running my blog, quite frankly, in a shared hosting environment. And, what happens if it's hacked? I get to be embarrassed. Maybe if anybody is following me who's a peer, and it's kind of like, I'm not saving information about users. I got nothing there that has any value other than to me and my mom, right? That's what me and my mom blog. Actually, I've got like quite a few people who visit every day according to my analytics, but I think that they got lost. So, it's like, who comes to a cybersecurity website? Are any of you going there? I don't know. But anyway, Web Application Firewall. Somebody said putting a proxy in front. This is what we're talking about. You put a Web Application Firewall in front. When you go to the premium, the paid-for versions of this, you get that with your security program. Basically, it does the same thing for your website that Barracuda Spam Firewall does for email. It looks at all the traffic coming in and blocks anything that's not legitimate or appropriate, or anything that looks like a botnet, or anything that looks like it's got malware in it, or what have you. Some advanced things is that you can go in and change your database prefix from WP to something else. There's a plugin that will do that to an existing website. I'm a little nervous about doing that, because this is sort of a global change that if you screw it up will render your website pretty much dead. Backups. Remember that backup thing we talked about 5 slides back? Change your WordPress security keys. I've got links later on that will take you to online instructions on how to do some of these more technical things. So, write your own HT access, disable the XML RPC by deleting this particular file, and read your security logs. And if you don't have security logs, you can install WP Audit Log and read your security logs there. Disable PHP error reporting. PHP error reporting tells an attacker when a PHP error is created, it'll give the version of PHP you're running, and that'll give the attacker information that they can go look in a cool software tool called Metasploit, and they can find an attack exploit made for your version of PHP and your version of WordPress. Google Search Console, formerly Google Webmaster Tools. If you register your account there, you'll be notified if malicious things are happening to your website by Google, which would be, nice to know earlier rather than later. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And, I had a client who called, their website had been disabled by their hosting company because their homepage was actually hosting malware, a malware download. So everybody that came to that website for that day and however many days got infected with something. This is not a good thing for your website. That to be ticking off your visitors. The 2 you have in addition to your mom, right? It's like, God, it worked so hard to get those other 2 and now they're gone. My mom's not coming back. To an HTTPS site, most of us have done that because Google said if you did that, your page rank will be better. With free tools like Let's Encrypt, you don't even have to spend any money to do this. I mean, usually like SSL certificates, well, the one I bought and I'm paying for wasn't that much. I think it was like $60. The prices have dropped, and it's really not that expensive. What's nice about having an SSL website is that your traffic across the internet between your visitor and your website is now fully encrypted. So, you know, it's a nice thing to do for your site visitors.
And also you get less encrypt, free SSL is unlimited version, not
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. That's automated by Let's Encrypt. I was actually at, on Saturday at the meeting of Penguins Unbound, which is the local Linux users group. One of the two founders of Let's Encrypt was there. And it was like super awesome. You know, it was, when I signed up to go, it's like, oh, Let's Encrypt, that'd be fun. I didn't realize it was going to be, you know, like the Bill Gates of Let's Encrypt was sitting there. You know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the way I did it. I just bought the cert off of my host because it was the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, you might need to actually, you know, do some technical stuff that, if you screw up, will be like that. What? What, on wiseguyscybersecurity.com? Oh, okay then. I guess I better check that out. Because I'm paying for it. I don't know why it's not there, but thank you.
Security app.
You see, now you notice the little crimson. Yeah. So anyway, you can sign up for some website security emails. Obviously, my blog is not focused exclusively on WordPress issues, but the WordFence and Sucuri blogs are. It's worth getting the emails. They don't come that often. You can always delete them if the subject seems boring. Some of the resources, WP Security Audit Log, Mini Orange, Backup WordPress or Updraft. And now here are the links. And I will, yes, answer the question that somebody's going to ask, can I have your slides? Yes, you can. And I'll send them to Josh. And if you've got a place where you post that stuff, that's cool. If you want your own personal version, I've got business cards here in a pocket someplace, so just come up and take one. And then, you know, have to email me, okay? Don't give me a note, I'm gonna forget. I'm gonna lose the note, or I'm gonna put it in my pile. You know that pile? You got a pile, right? Yeah, you don't wanna be in my pile. WordPress Security Learning Center, how to secure WordPress, a great article on hostingfacts.com. WordPress Security Wizard, Lock Down Your WordPress Site from Hackers by Roland Dahr. That one, you'll just have to Google that. I don't have the web address for that. I think that might be like a ebook. WordPress Security, an introduction to hardening WordPress at makeawebsitehub.com. Where did it go? Google Search Console, LastPass, Google Authenticator, which is what I use for you know, generating the one-time passcodes. Google Authenticator actually has some security problems with the way that they generate the secret key. Authy is a better tool, but I'm already on Authenticator and I'm just not going to change it. Too much trouble to go around and fix everything that I've got on there. How to use htaccess and editing WP config and the codecs, changing the WP table prefix again from the WordPress codecs, changing security keys, PHP error reporting, same story. So all this stuff's out there in the codecs. And that's it.
Okay, everybody grab a beer or a piece of donut or open a bag of chips. Hey, hi, I'm David Skarjune. I'm here to give you a quick update on WordCamp Minneapolis, St. Paul. We have expanded. We have invaded St. Paul and taken over. I think we are the first WordCamp ever to be a bi-municipal WordCamp. It's controversial. So anyway, here we are. This is WordCamp. I am on the organizing team of WordCamp Minneapolis, which is coming up first weekend of August. Anybody apply to be a speaker yet? Good for you, because we closed that yesterday. But there's more opportunity, and that's what I'm here to tell you about. How many people have ever been to a WordCamp anywhere? Cool. So most people know what it is. Of course, what does WordCamp mean? Well, it comes from something called FUBAR. And you all know what that stands for, right? Effed up beyond all recognition. Somehow that led to the term FUBAR, which is used in programming. Does anybody know why? Oh yeah, okay, FUBAR, yeah. No, the first rule is FUBAR. We don't talk about FUBAR. And yeah. And then somebody named Tim O'Reilly created something called FUCamp because somebody wanted to have a FUBAR with beer at a FUCamp. And then a year later, they said, well, we want to do that too. And then we had bar camps, and there is mini bar here in Minnesota. And then a year after that, in San Francisco back in 2006, I think it was, Matt Mullenweg had the first WordCamp. And a bar camp, WordCamp, is a locally organized unconference, meaning that instead of some big industry event that costs hundreds to thousands of dollars to get in, and Microsoft and Oracle and Adobe are there with their giant pavilions and secret parties and people in suits, and instead, it's something that is locally organized and people organize what they want, and it's made affordable, and it's usually about web and technology topics. So, if you want to find out more about WordCamps in general, that would be at WordCamp Central, which is easy to find. And those little dots show all the WordCamps that were around the world last year. 115 in 41 countries. That's pretty big. We are a global project with WordPress. 36,000 tickets were sold. A lot of people went to these things, and it took the work of 750 organizers, over 2,000 speakers, over 1,000 sponsors. A lot of companies do global sponsorships and help sponsor WordCamps almost anywhere. So it's really cool. It means that somebody in a third world country can say, hey, we have some tech people in my town, in my city. Why don't we throw a WordCamp? But how do we pay for that? Well, the WordPress Foundation has a subsidiary that gets funding from companies like Bluehost and GoDaddy, Sucuri, others, and they pay for WordCamps to be possible anywhere. Now, we also get local sponsorships, but it's really easy to do. Also, it takes thousands of volunteers. Anybody ever volunteer at a WordCamp? Good, because we're going to ask you to sign up to do that tonight. Great, great. Yeah, we just launched it today. Now, the first WordCamp Minneapolis was in 2010. Anybody go to that? Yeah, that was, it was kind of like on the heels of Minibar, which has been at Best Buy for many years annually. So this one was at Best Buy, the company Automatic, the major mothership company that's kind of behind WordPress, put a lot of money into that to make it happen. A guy named Matt Barker, who was a real estate agent, did it. It was a one-time thing, and then it kind of just disappeared. But a guy named Kiko Duran revitalized that in 2013 at Minneapolis Community Technical College, and we had a few hundred people show up for that one. It was a 2-day event. Then we had it again the next year. We moved to St. Thomas, a little bigger space in downtown Minneapolis. Then 2015, we did it again at St. Thomas. It kept getting bigger, and last year we moved to the University of Minnesota, and we went to 3 days. We added a early day where we had a Foundation Friday where we had 3 training tracks for 120 people at McNally Smith College of Music. So the idea was to invite people in. It's like, well, I don't know if I'd go to WordCamp. I don't know about WordPress. It's like, well, hey, show up and we'll give you some training, and whether you want to be a user, designer, developer, and then go to the conference. You're going to feel more comfortable at all those different sessions that get to high levels. This year, we are again at the University of Minnesota on the West Bank campus, August 4th, 5th, and 6th. That's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're doing a little different this time where the main conference is Friday, Saturday. The reason we're doing that is sometimes there's attrition, you know, on Sunday. People have busy weekends. And if your company, or if you're a freelancer and you're sponsoring yourself or your company's sponsoring you to go, it's like, well, hey, take Friday off from work, go to the conference, then go Saturday, and then Sunday is going to be an extra day. But instead of just training, some WordCamps do a contributor day on their 3rd day. Those are often pretty big ones. It takes a lot of organization to add that. What we're going to do is have a day where we say, hey, what's next? Now you've been to the conference, what are you going to do next? We're going to have a main track with some talks, and we'll have some breakout groups. We're going to have some workshops. So that's a day for people who want a little more focus on how to take what they've learned at the conference and sit down with some other people and get involved, and kind of like a local contributor day. Now, we did launch, it's 71 days to go. We did launch the opportunity to sign up to be a volunteer. We had 34 volunteers working last year, worked out really well. Of course, there's a team of about, almost a dozen organizers in addition, so that's like 4 dozen people altogether that are working to pull this off, in addition with staff at the University of Minnesota helping out. And here's the opportunities you have that you can sign up for. You can work at setup registration. We have people who do photography, people who do audio and video. We need room managers and MCs to introduce speakers, people to run around with microphones and equipment, people to help clean up. We have something called a happiness bar, where if you have some WordPress expertise, you like sharing that with people, helping solve problems. We run the happiness bar. What we're going to do this year, rather than just helping problems, we're going to kind of make that a Q&A place for speakers. So if you want to sit down with speakers and help them answer questions after their talks, that's at the happiness bar. We need people who are just guides to help people move around the whole space, and just all-purpose people who will do anything and just kind of want to hang out and have fun. And that's one of the reasons to volunteer. You have fun. And free admission. Gee, you don't have to pay that $20 a day. And then you get your food and your swag and everything. It's a great chance to meet other people, just like coming here to a meetup. You can meet people in the local community. Plus, we have speakers and companies and people coming in literally from all over the world that you can meet and network with. So in addition to just meeting people socially, getting to know them, maybe you're looking for work or working for some alliances for some kind of special initiative you're interested in. Maybe you want to get some new skills working as a volunteer. And you want to inspire yourself to do more. And mostly, you're going to make it happen. We can't do WordCamp without sponsors, without sponsors, Nick, and without, thank you. Thank you. I know. And also, there's something called 5% of the future. Anybody heard of that phrase, 5% for the future? Yeah. What that means is WordPress is an open source, volunteer-driven project. It's free open source software. How does that happen? Well, Automatic, the big company, spends some money, but there are companies that are much bigger than Automatic making more money. They have staff too that volunteer their time. And the idea is that, hey, if all the companies and all the people who benefit from using WordPress in their work could just donate 5%. People like me, I'm independent, I'm not a rich guy, I'm scraping by, but I give time as a contributor at WordPress.org, and a lot of other people do. Anybody in here a contributor at WordPress.org in any way? Okay, I see a couple guys, yeah. And that's what makes it happen. So by being a volunteer, you're part of that 5% by showing up and giving your time. You don't have to be a programmer. There's only so many people who need to program the core code. There are thousands of other things that have to get done in the WordPress ecosystem. We are expanding. We are about to hit 28% of the web that we run, and it's just going to go further. The more and more things we do, the more and more industries we touch, the more and more kinds of people we work with. So if you are interested at all, 2017 Minneapolis WordCamp.org. Go there and sign up now. Thank you.
Last but not least, we have Tessa Kriesel, and she's going to be talking about managing your site configurations with a distributed team. How do you make sure everybody's kind of working on the same page when they're not all working on the same website?
So while I'm doing this, managed WordPress hosting, you could use Pantheon. We also support Let's Encrypt, so keep that in mind. All right, give me a second here. Trying to change screens to better display. Yeah, it will be on like the personal, yes. As of, we just like released it to most of our business and professional plans, and then it will go on down from there. So, yeah. Yep, that's coming too with Fastly integration. So that's your highly secure managed WordPress hosting that you should use. I'm Tessa. If you can't tell, I work for Pantheon. I'm an agency and community engineer. I'm also an instructor for Girl Develop It, and I'm also the founder and executive director for an organization called Coders of Tomorrow that is just getting started, but the initiative is to teach kids to code here in the Twin Cities. If you need to reach out to me, you can find me on Twitter, wordpress.org, pretty much everywhere with TessaK22. It's my email address, my website. You can also find me at other WordPress events. So I'm going to lay out the scenario so we can kind of work through the things that I want to tell you about today. So let's just imagine that we have a client website that we're working on. Maybe there's 3 to 4 developers. Everyone's working locally. They're using MAMP or Vagrant or whatever it is that they're using. So they all have their own database, and they've exported that out from the database that is sitting on our dev server or wherever that might be. In this instance, I'm going to use Pantheon. And we need to make a couple database changes. And it's on this one single developer to change like 2 things in a plugin setting. In turn, having to do that either means that A, we're going to go have to make those plugin settings on every single other database that everyone else is working on. Or B, we find another alternative. So I'm going to tell you about another alternative. So what is site configuration? So site configuration includes any items that are configurable in your CMS dashboard that's not related to content. So we're going to find any of that stuff under settings or within some of our theme settings or plugin settings. Configuration, it's everywhere. So what is configuration management then? Configuration management is the act of managing your site configuration in code through version control. Because right now, all of those settings are in your database, right? So there's no way to say, hey, I'm going to put you in Git, and I want you to just follow along, and all the other developers need to get you as well. So configuration management allows you to do that. But do we have enough? Today, you probably do not, but you will soon. So has anyone heard of this plugin, wp-cfm? Yes, good. Lumenfire knows what they're doing. So wp-cfm is a configuration management plugin. The whole world needs to know about this, and this is my goal, is to tell every WordPress developer about this awesome tool. So the perks is there's a less need to copy the database. You don't need to manually apply database changes. So when we had that scenario that we talked about, there's no need to actually overwrite that entire database or have to go and do all of those settings all over again in all of your other sites. You can track and migrate configuration files using Git, Subversion, whatever it is that you're using. So I'm going to drop some terminology here because later on we're going to talk about it, and then you know what I'm talking about. So a bundle is a group of settings to track. This could be a single setting, or it could be tons of settings that you have inside of one bundle. A push means that you're going to export that configuration from your database and you're going to put it in the file system. And what that means is that basically it's going to say, hey, you gave me these settings inside of this bundle. What do you want? When do you want these, or where do you want these to go, essentially? So once you push them, that's going to push them to a JSON file for you. And then pull is the opposite. So you've pushed them to the JSON, you've brought it into your version control, your other developers have gotten this JSON, and when you click pull, it's going to say, okay, I found this JSON bundle. I'm actually going to make these changes to your database for you. And we're going to walk through a demonstration here. But so what can it track? It can track anything that's inside of the WP options table. So that means anything that is core settings. So reading, writing, all of those core settings that we all know about. Anything that is inside of the customizer. So if you have a theme and you're building it with advanced custom fields and that's how you're doing your settings, that won't work. But if you learn how to use customizer, then you can utilize the customizer options and bring those over with your configuration as well. And then anything that is in plugin settings, as long as they're storing them in that table. Some plugins do it right and put them in there. Some plugins don't necessarily do that. So it just depends on which plugins and themes you're using. Demo. Does anyone else like Friends? It's like my absolute favorite show in the whole world. All right, these are the steps we're going to take, but I'm going to pop out of my slides here and we're going to walk through it. Apparently Slack is not happy with me. Woo. I need a mouse. Has anyone used Pantheon? That's awesome. So Pantheon, one of the nice upsides for it is that it gives you different environments, and they're like already set up there for you. So it's really great for this demo. So even if I didn't work for Pantheon, I would still want to use something like this for my demo because we can move back and forth very easily. And so it's really great for the demo. So right now I'm in my Pantheon dashboard. I'm going to open my dev site. So in my dev environment, I'm going to go to my site admin here. And apparently I've never even installed WordPress yet. Yeah, we'll just do this. Should I use admin? Where's the security guy? I know. Look at you guys are going to know all my stuff. I will delete this, don't worry. Won't let me use that. Oh, confirm. Perfect. All right, so we have our new site here. We're gonna go install it. It's on the WordPress repository, it's completely free. They should really be charging for it, but I'm glad they don't. I know. This is one that's worth it, though. It's worth it. Okay, so once you activate it, it's going to show up under settings. So we can see down here, wp-cfm is there. We don't have any bundles created, so we're going to create a bundle. The one downfall of this plugin is that you see the machine name for all of these different options. So if you're looking for in WordPress, the actual site title is in a different place, and it's called blog name. So some of these things you just kind of have to read through to figure out what they are. I have some cheat sheets a little bit later, as well as on this site that you guys can go look at. So if I grab, so let's just say, let's do site name and a description. So I'm going to create a bundle. I'm going to grab blog name and blog description, which is going to be the site title and then that tagline that you can put in there. So I can save that. I'm going to go back to Pantheon. I'm actually going to commit this because I added a new plugin, but it is not recognizing it. All right. So for you, those of you who haven't seen Pantheon before, you can make changes however you want, and you kind of come back here and commit them. So this is going to be install wp-cfm. I'm doing this now so you guys can actually be able to see the JSON file that I'm going to create here in just a second. Cool, so basically what I did there is a git commit. If I pop back over here, my settings have been saved. If I click push, like we learned this terminology just a couple seconds ago, or minutes ago I should say, I'm actually creating that JSON file. So it is taking the values that I have in blog name and that I have in blog description, and it is pushing it to a JSON file for me. So I've done that, I've pushed it, it says push was successful. If I pop back over to my Pantheon dashboard, I'll see that I have one file change, and it's showing that this JSON file was created. If I open it, we can see that I've got these values in here, so it's just another WordPress site, and then the blog name is Tessa's site, like I entered in my installation. Awesome. So we're going to say whatever we want here, blog name bundle. So now we have committed this JSON to our repository. If there are other developers that are working on the project, they could go and get that JSON file. So instead of imitating other developers, we're just going to pop into a different environment because that environment's going to have something different. Which now that I think about it, might not because I haven't set it up yet, but we'll see what happens. We can create another bundle. So we're going to set up our test site here. We'll go see what it says first. Let me... Sorry, I should have set this up ahead of time. This is my bad here. Test. I guess it's moving up. Okay, let's go over here. I actually have all these already created over in my other environment. So I'm popping over to a different site. I'm going to go change some things in my site because I already have bundles in here. So if I go in here, this site I actually have all of these bundles set up. So I went through and created bundles for like everything in WordPress. So I took all of the core settings and I broke it down and said everything inside of general, everything inside of writing, all of those settings there. My theme, I'm using 2017, so I created a bundle just for that. My posts, my widgets, my plugins, and then I also have Yoast SEO. So if we go in here and I make some setting changes here quick. Let's say, whoa. Hold on. Working. I think so, because my screen just went black, so I think it will. Awesome. All right, so I added the word plugin here, and then we'll just say, we'll just change this to configuration management. All right, so save these changes. If we go look in our test environment here, yeah. Yeah. Back. All right, I will carry on. Okay, so if I go to my test site in this environment, we're going to see the old title. So the old title had the whole configuration management, blah, 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 the super long title. And we didn't have the word plugin in here. So I have gone into my dev environment. I've made those changes. I got to close out all these extra pages I have open here. So I'm in my dev environment. I've made these changes. I've saved them. So if I go back to wp-cfm, I can re-push up this bundle because I've made changes to my general settings. So if I push this up, I go back to Pantheon and my dev environment. For whatever reason, it didn't push it. I'm having technical difficulties apparently. Oh, there we go. Now it's there. All right, so if we look at this JSON, we can see that these things have changed. So the title used to be that, and now it's replacing the title with what my new entry was. So that's what's going to get pushed to that JSON file. So if I go here and I'm going to say general settings changes. I can commit that. Once I commit it, then I'll be able to grab it in my test environment. All right, so pop back over to my test environment. I have one change here that I can deploy to my test, which is these general settings. So I'm just going to deploy code. Not doing anything with the database, just grabbing the code from my dev environment. Awesome, so that's deployed. So I think this is my test environment tab. So this is my test environment, still saying this old title, nothing has changed. But if I go in to my test environment here in the admin, and I go to wp-cfm, and I pull in this table, or this bundle here, it's going to say, do you want to import these file settings to your database? I'm going to say yes. I would love to do that. I can refresh my admin, and we can actually see up here that the title changed. And if we go open our browser, we can also see that the title changed. So we can go through and it's super sweet. You can go through and add all those things. So if we look through these different bundles that I have created and click on them, these are all the things that you can grab from the different pieces and sections of the settings inside of WordPress. The nice thing is that I installed Yoast SEO on here. And so if the plugins are built in a manner where they are set up inside of that options table, you can actually set those up too. So I can't remember what they start with. You do have to do some value evaluating here. Actually, I'm going to test one on that. I have this in dev. So many environments. There we go. So we can see the WP SEO, all of those different data that's coming from the database that's a part of the Yoast SEO plugin. So really a lot of plugins that you use today, anytime you're entering settings in there, those are going inside of the database. So if you're setting up any plugin where maybe you're doing some intricate API keys and whatever else, and you don't want to have to redo that on every single database that your developers have locally or that you have on your server or maybe that you have in your live environment, you can put them in a bundle, push them up in a JSON, pull them in and make those changes to your database without cloning your entire database. Let's see. There is also, so there's a theme mods one. So whatever theme you use, this is not the theme mods one. Hold on. There you go. Here's the theme mods. There's one setting that does all of your theme mods, and it puts it in a big serialized snippet of code. But it'll take anything that you have inside of your customizer, inside of your theme, and do the same thing. So we'll pop back to my slides here. Okay. All right, so tips and tricks. This right here is that options reference. This website on the codex, it actually deciphers all of those crazy database names so you can figure out exactly what those are. I also have some cheat sheets in the slide deck which you'll have access to. You can view your settings. If anyone's ever done this, you can just go to your site /wp-admin and then do /options.php. And it actually gives you a huge list of all of the settings that you have inside of your database. Most of them are serialized data, so you don't get to see them, but some of them you can. And so then you can kind of figure out oh, that's going to this or this is going there. Create as many bundles as you want. Like you saw in my demo, I had bundles for every single section, keeping it all kind of organized and pushed out. So if I made certain setting changes to different places, I didn't have to do a huge bundle at one time. Is anyone familiar with wp-CLI? So it's a command line tool for WordPress. If you use wp-CLI, there are commands that actually work with wp-cfm. You can pretty much do anything that you can do with the plugin except for create a bundle. So when you create that first initial bundle, you will have to go into your first environment and actually check off those boxes that you want. But other than that, you can use wp-CLI to send and do your different configuration things. If you don't know what wp-CLI is, you should Google it because it's awesome. Plugins doing it right. Presently, advanced custom fields, does anyone use that? I'm guessing you'll have a lot more hands, yes. Advanced custom fields has this option already. So the field groups and the fields that you create, you can actually sync those to a JSON and bring those to different environments. It's kind of the same concept. My hope is to help contribute to other plugins so that we can get to this JSON point with other plugins, allowing us to be able to leave our databases alone when we have content that is what's most important on our site. So the next few slides are just cheat sheets. So what the name, so if you're looking for the membership level or the time zone, what the actual field is inside of the database. So we'll just kind of whip through these. They're here for you guys to grab if you download the slide deck. Cool. The thing we talked about, third-party plugins have their own set of settings you can always check. So after you activate wp-cfm, you can go into that bundle, try to create a new one, and you can actually recognize like which ones have been added. Other helpful resources, Pantheon is a major promoter of this plugin, mainly because we think it's awesome. We have no contribution to it. We have no actual like investment into it. We just really like it. So Pantheon website has a lot of documentation, blog posts. Forum One is the agency that actually built this plugin. They have a GitHub repository, the codex, you can look at the options, and then if you're not using the advanced custom fields synchronized JSON, I would strongly recommend that you do. It's pretty great. And then I also want to do a small little push for WordCamp. I just wanted to make sure that that's really set into your brains, that you can do all of these different things. You can volunteer, you can attend, you can sponsor. If you work for a company that is interested in sponsoring, that's always great. And then promote. If you can't go, like, please share it on social media because we would love to have you and your friends there.
It's like if you're a freelancer, we will be adding a micro spot for them. That makes it affordable for you to advertise something rather than get on
Exactly. I already posted the link to this website that I have put together that's got my slide deck on it. It's got some other cheat sheets and WPCLI stuff on there. If you so graciously would like to give me feedback, you can do that on my own website. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?